comparison of low unemployment, or rather high unemployment and low consumer demand now and at the beginning of the Great Depression, we can also ask ourselves the question, are things the same now as they were in 1929? Or are there critical differences? Well, there are critical differences. Back in 1929, the idea that the government should not be involved in the economy had all this conventional wisdom. It wasn't the kind of thing that anybody really questioned. It was simply the way in which the government had interacted with the economy since the founding of the Republic. Any intervention into the economy was very rare and mostly only happened during wartime. And so at that time, there was an incredible prejudice against the government helping out at all with any kind of relief, any kind of subsidy, any kind of public jobs program, anything like that. Now we have a more ambivalent attitude about government. You know, yes, there is a movement that says government is bad and ought not be involved in the economy, but there's another movement that is very strong, that is sort of supported by institutions like the one here, institutions that exist, that government ought to be involved in the economy. So government is here now to try to regulate the shocks of the economy a little bit more than it was in the 1930s. And so we may not experience the same kind of depression because there is a critical difference. We have a different attitude toward government intervention, which is the only institution which is big enough and can operate in a unified way to intervene in the economy during crises, as demonstrated by the 2007, 2008, 2009 TARP bailout. Without that, the economy just basically goes and grinds to a halt. Reasoning. Signs. Something perceived points to something unperceived or abstract. If you are riding your bike across the beautiful South Dakota landscape, as I often do, and you see in the distance a trail of smoke, you will infer that at the source of that trail of smoke is what? Fire. Where there is smoke, there is fire. Smoke is the sign of fire. Smoke is the thing seen that points to the thing unseen. When the sound of USD plays, that is the thing that we see and experience. The thing to which it points is the spirit of our student body. That becomes an index or a sign for something unperceived or abstract. Now, the spirit of, the sort of pride that South Dakotans take in the coyote and in our teams, etc., in our school, the spirit that we have is abstract, whereas fire is literal. So, a sign is something seen pointing to something unseen. Of course, the fact that I'm wearing my red and gray today, it's D-Day, so I got the red on, I'm showing spirit. At the same time, it's professorial, so I'm showing two signs. One is school spirit, the other one is professionalism. These are signs. You can use signs to demonstrate claims. How do I know when there's a recession? There's a sign that indicates that there's a recession, and that's low growth, zero growth. Some people define it as a 2% drop in growth. Some people say it's a 0% growth, 0% in growth. That's a sign of a recession. How do I know whether or not a student is going to succeed in college? How does the university determine whether or not you're going to succeed? Anybody know? ACT, right? The ACT is a sign of your potential success as a college student. And in fact, research has shown that over time, on average, ACT scores are correlated with success in college. I don't mind telling you, I came to the University of South Dakota in 1990, and I barely got into this school. I had an 18 on the ACTs. It doesn't correlate. It doesn't necessarily correlate. On average it correlates, but it doesn't necessarily mean that just because somebody had a low ACT that they won't do well. I had a low ACT because I didn't take any math courses when I was in high school, and so I bombed the math portion. That was one of the many reasons. Another reason is I just didn't study. Another reason is that I didn't really think I was going to go to college. But everybody else was taking the ACT, and I thought, well, I better take it too, because I'd feel kind of weird if I didn't. Social pressure. Worked out in the end, I think. What else could the sign indicate? That's the critical question. Just because we see a wispy substance in the air does not mean there's fire. It could also mean that there's a lot of humidity in the air and the temperature rapidly dropped. And when it rapidly dropped, the air could no longer contain the humidity. It constricted, and then the humidity turned into water droplets that are now suspended in the air. We call this fog. And so it looks like smoke, but it doesn't point to fire. It rather points to an atmospheric condition. A rose could mean love. It could mean infatuation. It could mean a variety of things. It could mean that love is vital, that it's growing, or it could mean that love is dying. You know, it's a, well, that's an analogy. Why am I muddying the waters on that? I don't want to muddy the waters. That's definitely an analogy. So the critical question is what could the sign indicate? Could the sign indicate something else? So, you know, right now we're having this big debate in the country. For those of you, and you should all be following current events. Many big things are happening right now. The biggest things that have ever happened in my entire life are being decided now. You should really know that. Like when the politicians say like this election is like the most important election, it really matters. It really is. It really is. But what's going on now is, of course, we're experiencing high unemployment. You're well aware of that. We're experiencing low economic growth. You're probably well aware of that. And there's a debate. You know, what does that mean? Those are signs. Those are signs of an economic dysfunction in the economy. Why? What is it a sign of? Now, some people say it's a sign of the fact that the government is radically reducing the amount of spending that it's doing, while at the same time we're exporting jobs overseas. That we need to do two things. We need to provide more incentives to keep jobs onshore, and the next thing that we need to do is we need to radically increase government spending so that there will be money out of the economy that people can spend. Now that's what some people say that means. Other people say that what it means is that businesses are not spending the economy right now because they're uncertain about what the government is going to do. The government hasn't decided what it's going to do with tax policy. There's a new healthcare law that's coming out that might be a little bit confusing to people, and they don't understand what it means. And so they're unwilling to hire because they don't know how that's going to implicate their businesses or their bottom line or whatever. But it's a debate. It's a debate that people are having, and it's a debate that really is a debate about what high unemployment and low consumer demand mean. And of course that has implications for what politicians we elect, what policies we support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, if it is true that government's in the way, let's get rid of government. Let's cut it off. But if it's not true, then we need to do something else. But we need to be able to examine the argument. Cause. One event influences another event. So there's a famous example to demonstrate the idea of reasoning by cause, and it's the New York City case. Researchers found, when analyzing data, like just a bunch of data that they had lying around, that there was this interesting relationship between ice cream consumption and crime in New York City. As ice cream consumption went up, so did crime. Isn't that amazing? I guess you could infer that ice cream causes crime. Ice cream consumption causes crime. They found another interesting finding that ice cream consumption also causes another event, drowning, it's associated with it. And researchers inferred, oh, well, ice cream must be causing these things. They didn't really infer this, but this is the example. What's the problem with this claim? What's the problem with this reasoning that I'm using? What's that? Is that a non sequitur? It's kind of a non sequitur. What's that? The supporting evidence is the correlation. Whenever there's ice cream consumption, whenever ice cream consumption goes up, so does crime. Is this convincing to you?
No.
It doesn't seem convincing, but what's wrong with it? What can you point to that says it's the problem? Temperature. How does temperature cause ice cream consumption and crime?
When it's hot, people buy more ice cream. When it's hot, people tend to get aggravated easily.
Yeah. And they also tend to go swimming more, which means they drown more. Right? And so it's a common cause fallacy. And so the evidence doesn't match the claim. So it could be a non sequitur too, depending on how you define it. But it's a common cause fallacy would be the more specific description of it. So one event influences another event is causal reasoning. But all causal reasoning, and this is the way scientists operationalize this, and this is the way rhetoricians operationalize this, this is the way people think about causal reasoning. There are three questions you always need to ask about